Right, here we are down in the edge basement again. Today we're going to go through some 9v9 formations. I'm Ian Richards. That's Jay Hamilton. This is the whiteboard special. Jay, take us through this first layout. So we're going to go through three different formations from our 9v9 resident expert.
Yeah, expert.
And yeah, we're going to go through, I guess, what you prefer, right? This is probably your A1, like favorite lineup, and arguably the most common, I think, that you've said that you see out there in the 9v9 world. This is going to be the neutral setup, so Jay's going to go through that. We'll show what it might look in the attacking phase, what we hope it looks like in the defending phase when we want to win the ball back, and then, like say, go through two other formations and kind of some pros and cons of each layout, the numbering system, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah, so this is, as you can see on the board, our kind of normal setup that we kind of instill in our coaches at the 9v9 level. And there's kind of piggybacks off of our, with Ian and the academy levels, the number system, and we're adding two more pieces to that puzzle that they've been told and worked on during that time. So kind of a normal setup, a 3-4-1 is like what we like to call it. You got your back three, your 2, 3, and your 4. Kind of a diamond-shaped midfield, if you want to look at it that way. With the 7 and 11 on the right, and the 6. And the top of the diamond is a 10. My personal preference is a 10. There's some coaches that like to call this player as an 8. I don't think there's any right or wrong reason on why you do that stuff. And then your lone striker as the 9, playing the top of that piece.
Why do you think, or why would you say someone calls it an 8 over a 10? Just kind of touch on that for our
for me, an 8, we kind of classify as an 8 as a box-to-box player, so they're obviously, getting forward in the attack and defending in the attack as well. Why I've always called it a 10 is I want that player to focus more on the attacking side and have that in their brain when they play. So when they get the ball and they're not back here defending on the back line all the time, and then next thing you know, when we win the ball, we don't have that player up the field to play to and to spring that attack. So like I said, I don't think there's a right or wrong, but just personally, I think it's easier for especially younger players, boys or girls, to have that kind of notion of I'm more of an attacking type player, even though they do have defensive responsibilities. We want to make sure that they are in the correct areas of the field and being able to do that.
Cool. And I think for the coach as well, like you said, whatever number you call it, then explain it, right? Like that's the key.
Yeah.
Because there's no necessarily right and wrong, but as long as you convey that message to players and potentially parents as well, right? Because you often have those conversations in a parking lot of like, hey, my son or daughter said they were an 8 today, and usually blah blah blah, they're a 10, and if you can justify that, that's that sets you up for success as well.
Sure.
That's all we want to be able to do with our players, is enable them to understand the roles that they're asked.
Exactly.
So we'll redraw this. We'll look at the attacking phase and maybe some areas to exploit and ways that we can have success from this.
Yep.
Right then, we've redrawn this 3-4-3, and for some attacking, offensive looks. So Jay, take us through kind of the shape in possession, obviously looking to get into dangerous areas and score.
Yeah, so I've moved the numbers up higher up the field now, so we're in an attacking phase. So obviously your 2, 3, and 4 getting to half field. Biggest piece, I think we all forget about it, but our goalkeeper, making sure they're not just standing back in the goal. So they're out of the box, they're part of the play. So if anything happens where a ball gets played over the top, they can come out and use their feet. So that's a big focus of us coaches that we forget about sometimes. That that they're just left back there, and next thing you know, we look back and they're standing on their line. So make sure your goalkeeper's involved in the play and part of the attack, even though that their position requires something different. And then as you look at it on the screen here, it almost kind of that 3-4-1 formation that we started in almost kind of morphs into a 3-2-3 kind of look. So, we're asking our 7s and 11s to be higher up the field, kind of even with our 9, getting involved in the attack. Our 10 is getting higher up the field as well. Our 6 is kind of occupying that space in the midfield. And then, to kind of go to a piece further, right? Depending on where the ball is on the field, now we're asking maybe our 2 or our 3 just to kind of go into those spaces to support.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're shifting across and going from there.
Cool. Yeah, I was the only question I would have had is probably these outside 2s and 3s defenders, right? More join in a little bit of support.
Yeah, I mean,
if the ball's on their side.
So if the ball's on the right side, we usually ask our 2 to kind of just go support that, and maybe now our 3 and our 4 are kind of just shifting across the field a little bit, and we're kind of leaving this side of the field open. At 11 and 12, basically 10 and 11-year-old kids, there's very few, if any, that can smash a ball from one side of the field to the other and really
in one pass.
Until you put you under pressure, right? So we're just trying to condense that space, but we still have that balance there, and we're kind of just leaving that side of the field there because it's going to probably take 2 or 3 passes to get over there, and as that time happens, we can shift and get into play there.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, as a coach, necessarily worry too much about this open side, right? This kind of weak side or blind side, whatever the term may be. Like say the technical ability of a lot of players is, how wide are the fields that you play on? 55
50
yards.
Yeah,
so
50
thinking a 10, 11-year-old's going to clip 40, 50-yard ball in the air and kind of kill you in one pass is a little, you'd probably get out of your chair and applaud if it were to happen.
Right.
So kind of we touched on this in the 4-4-2, right? You kind of, if you want to gain a little, you have to give a little. So like almost leaving this open may give the appearance of being vulnerable, but you want to take advantage of the side of the field the ball is on, and that's that chess match that we talked about last time, right?
And we're always thinking about, I think that transition piece, both to offensively and to defensively as well, right? And in this case, if I leave my 3 out here and my 4 in the middle, and we lose something here, now we don't have numbers to help out and try to win the ball, right? If they're here, right now we're putting just more numbers around that ball, so we can potentially win it back and now keep it here because, most of us know, even at your level and the academy level and the 11 and 12-year-olds is, it's really tough to get out of your end sometimes, sometimes because kids can't kick far enough, right? So the more you can keep them in and keep possession in that half, it's, just putting pressure on the other team there.
Definitely. And having the ball, but having a defensive mindset or at least a setup for what if.
Yeah.
And what we'll show in the next setup will probably demonstrate we don't have the ball, but what if we're about to get it?
Right.
Which we'll draw up now, and we'll show a kind of a defensive shape in this formation. Okay, so defensive setup for this 3-4-1 that we've been discussing. Jay, take us through how that shape might look if maybe we're under siege a little and don't have the ball for a minute or.
Yeah, so basically it's very similar to the setup that we had, right? It's maybe just a little bit more compacted. And this probably, that midfield shape takes more of a diamond look, right? So you're asking your 7-11 to probably drop and tuck in just a little bit. Your back 3 is kind of tucking in, right? And really just allowing teams to play in the flanks, right? That's the least dangerous area for us to deal with at the time. We don't want them to come down the middle of the field. And so kind of just condensing that shape and making it difficult to play through us. We always ask them to play around us, not through us in those situations.
Awesome. So again, we said the mindset of having the ball and wanting to attack is having a thought of what if we need to defend. So obviously we said what are the looks here for that positive transition where we might then get out.
Yeah. So in this setup, we win the ball. We have a lot of people around each other, right? So in this setup, we're just asking players to just create that width. So now they expand themselves, open up into those spaces there. So 11s are getting wider and higher up the field. 7s are getting wider and higher up the field, right? And now if we're looking to play them, now we have options. If the defender's off of them, right, we can play their feet. And now they can go 1v1 in those situations. If the defenders are higher up the field where we can't necessarily play their feet, now maybe we're playing balls into these channels here. Maybe our 9's running onto it. Maybe it's, our 7s and 11s are getting involved in those situations as well. So a lot of options, but the biggest thing is just, we're getting wide. here, getting wide here, 2s and 3s are getting wide, and just creating that space so we can continue to build and now hopefully get into that attacking phase like we talked about previously.
Sounds good. Okay, so our second look at a formation in 99 is a 4-3-1. Jay, take us through this kind of neutral setup and starting positions and numbering.
So similar to for the people that saw our 11v11, all right, a normal back four setup. So we have a 2, a 3, and now we've partnered with our previous formation. We've partnered now a 4 and a 5 together. So it's a proper back four look. Still the holding midfielder as the number 6. 2 10s, so 2 attacking minded central midfielders, right, and then our lone striker up top, making a 4-3-1 formation.
Awesome. Like we said in, I guess, the last formation, right? Like numbering and why a double number. So why would you say 2 10s?
Same mindset as before is just for them the players to know their kind of role and responsibilities in that. Personally, if I play in this formation, I'm probably going to tell one of these 2 players that defensively, I want them to act more like an 8 opposed as a 10. So, we have maybe a second player getting in behind the ball, and if one of the 10s wants to stay a little bit higher on the defensive side, it's not the end of the world, but we have that player that kind of gets in and he's that box-to-box player. The similar setup in terms of those pieces is making sure everybody knows their responsibilities. Once again, we don't want to call these guys 7s and 11s playing in the central part of the field because our kids know that that's a wide player and they want to attack the flanks and do those things. So we want to make sure that structure's there and all that.
Cool. Yeah, all about the message. All right, we'll redraw for the attacking look and we'll go through a couple of options. Okay, so attacking look for the 4-3-1. Yeah, take us through how this has changed from that neutral shape into maybe having areas to exploit and get into dangerous spots.
Yeah. So in the original setup, most of you probably noticed we had no 7s and 11s, right? So in that setup, we're going to ask our 2s and 3s to become those players in the attacking phase, right? So basically give them that freedom to just run up and down the flanks and to enjoy that space in there. So this would be a common attacking setup that we would ask our players to be in. So our 4-5 would be our 2 center backs being our defending piece. Our 6 is kind of in there, kind of forming that triangle that we always like having our players around. And then as you see, our 3s higher up the field, our 2s higher up the field, getting to be those players that are attacking. And going back to our previous setup in that 3-4-1, right, it almost kind of envisions that as well in this setup, right? Because at any point in time, if at point we lose the ball, this ultimately, the 6 kind of just drops back into that space, right? And we have that back 3 set up, right? Until maybe our 2s and our 3s can get back into the play and to help defensively. But on the attack, we would prefer our 6 to be just a higher up the field, just to kind of connect those lines with those other pieces there.
Yeah, almost becoming the pivot for
right.
the switch of play or something like that. I think this is a really important one, right? This kind of defensive triangle, because of almost lung busting the 2s and the 3s, and maintaining, like we've said, whatever your message is to your players is stay consistent with. I would, and I'm sure you agree, right? You keep them as the 2 label, because that would plant a seed of like, I'm a 2. If we lose the ball, like, let's go, got to get the ball back, rather than the potential of labeling them in this very attacking formation, but labeling them as 7, and in transition they think, well, I'm a 7. Maybe it's not quite as intense on the recovery. So again, stay on message with your players. Call them 2s and 3s, but invite them to join in the attack, which is great.
Right.
Make sure that they obviously the 2 and 3 label helps them understand that lose the ball and get back. So
correct. Yeah. I mean, and just like everything else, right? I think what Ian said is correct in terms of you tell them that that's what they are, but you can also explain to them in the attacking phase, right? You can become a 7 in those situations, but your job is a 2, right? So when that transition happens, you're getting back in.
All right, let's take a look at the defending side. Okay, so defensive look again for the 4-3-1 that we've been talking about. Kind of like any defending shape though, in it. Get between the ball and the goal, make that central dangerous area difficult for the opposition to play in. But yeah, if you can just kind of take us through what it all looks like.
Yep.
So those positions.
Once again, exactly what we talked about in the previous, right? Just everything's compact. Like we said earlier, right? Maybe you've told one of those 10s to be more of an 8, so they have a little bit more defensive responsibilities. But once again, we're kind of conceding these spaces out here away from our goals, so we're not giving the middle of the field where teams can be dangerous. So just nice and compact. Everybody's connected, right? And that transition piece, once again, once we win the ball, similar to the attacking phase, we're asking our 2s and 3s to open up and to get forward as quickly as possible, so we have that outlet in those open spaces that we're currently not occupying right now.
Yeah, I think having this potentially having this 4 line and the 6 protecting, like we've said about we're conceding space to the opposition. I guess in a positive transition, that could become space that we exploit, right?
Exactly.
Especially if they get a little excited about, like, they've got so many backs, so we'll send even more. You would, the theory or the chess match of it all is there's a big open space for us to explode into and create something positive for us.
Yeah, and once again, these players can kind of do that work, into these spaces here, defensively if we need them to, because once again, if the ball's here, really difficult to play that big switch ball at these ages, right? So, many people might say, why not play this, have this player go, but now we're conceding spaces potentially in behind those. So, sometimes we ask those players to do that as well. There's no right or wrong, I don't think, but, just in those situations.
Sounds good. All right, one more to go. All right, final one for our 99 piece today. 2-4-2. Yeah, take us through the numbering, the kind of neutral setup.
Yep. So kind of neutral setup that we would describe to our players or tell our players during this is we'd have a 4-5 as our 2 backs. So implementing like 2 center backs per se there. Still that same diamond formation that we had in the 3-4-1. You have your 6 and your 10 and your 7-11, right? And now you're playing with 2 9s, 2 central 9s in this formation.
Awesome. Looking at it, and obviously I'm in the 77 world, so I have 2 things that just in looking at this, if we like covered up these 2, this is basically what I play in 77. Right. 2, what I call 2-3-6, and then you have kind of that front line. This is a 9 over a 10. So the 2 positions are added for the sake of this is 2 9s up top and the base underneath. Potentially, if you were to play this formation and you played for me, is like, oh, now we just have 2 people up at the top. And then the second piece I want to mention is what we've said about message and labeling and numbers system is this 7-11 in this show is potentially the 2-3 in a previous formation that we've shown, and it's about
that description.
It's kind of the message from the coach of like planting the seed of, well, this is just a starting position now. You're a 7 because this is starting to go that way, rather than previously we wrote a 2 and you start deeper and you can still attack and transition the other way. So again, labeling the number, utilizing the number system and staying on message with your players is key.
Absolutely.
So whatever you put out there.
And we wouldn't ask our teams per se this would be their normal shape from the get-go. This is probably more of an attacking type shape that we would go to maybe during a game. You're down a goal, you're chasing a game, or you're tied and you have to win the game, whatever it may be, right? And
tournament play scenario.
You're trying to just get more numbers forward, create a little bit more chaos for the other team. And you're taking chances, right? Because we tell our players all the time, losing 1-0 or losing 6-0 is all the same. It's still a loss, and but we got to take these chances to try to find ways to get ourselves back in the game. You see it at all levels, right? So we're obviously allowing spaces in behind us for a reason.
Even in the setup.
For a reason, because we're trying to chase stuff.
So will we redraw it a little bit more attacking and probably be able to highlight those vulnerabilities, but hopefully the situation where we create our own chances and handle our own business. Okay, so the attacking look for the 2-4-2. Jay, take us through kind of this again, the setup and how positive it looks, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, once again, just throwing numbers as high as possible, trying to create opportunities and chances. Almost looks like a front four with our 7s and 11s there. Our 10s higher up the field, right? Very vulnerable here in terms of those pieces. But once again, still kind of keeping that triangle look on the defensive side. And then probably our goalkeeper, we're asking them to be higher up the field in this situation, not near the box, but maybe in between half and the box, just because we're really exposed in certain areas of the field. So if a team clears a ball, right, they're higher up the field to maybe collect that and to help us keep possession in those situations.
I think this makes me think of, like, I'm trying to envisage this in a game, like looking at that and the lineup and how the numbers are. This I would speculate, would put the fear of anything into the other team,
right,
which would force them to panic in transition,
right,
and maybe just kick the ball away, right? So it's like us knowing that, like, for this is where I'm going with the goalkeeper, knowing that they're higher up is because we've got so many forward. It's such an unusual look for 99 that maybe the other team are just like, where did all these people come from? And they're just sending it long. And so having the goalie there to kind of sweep that up is probably is a key.
And in this, at least for me personally, in this shape and this setup, and if we're chasing the game, we're asking our players to be more direct anyways, right? So we're asking them to pump balls into the box and just create those overload situations and panic situations for any team in those situations.
Yeah, close out of balance.
Balls bouncing around in the box and just being craziness during that time, right? So this is not definitely a possession type setup that we'd have or ask our kids to do in these situations. It's get the ball up the field as quickly as we can, put it in dangerous areas, and create chances.
Cool. All right, let's have a look at the defending side. Okay, so defending 2-4-2. We've drawn it up again, very narrow and condensed and all that. Get between the ball and the goal, all those things that you hear a lot of. But yeah, Jay, take us through maybe some, I guess, transitional pieces, right? And almost the mentality within this formation is to go forward. So
hopefully you're not doing a lot of defending in this setup in this formation, right? But when you do, normally what it looks like, right? So 4 or 5s are dropping, 6 is dropping. 7s and 11s, a lot of work for them in this setup, right? Because we're asking them to be higher up the field already, but they're going to have to be some sort of defensive responsibilities in those situations. So not coming all the way back probably on that back line, but within reason and finding their marks when necessary. And then ideally,
almost, potentially, like we were saying about play 2 roles,
right,
in previous looks, is almost like attack as 7-11 and defend as like 2-8s. Or even if they were to go even deeper,
come back farther, like 2-3, right? So obviously that transition piece for us is we're leaving our 9s higher up the field. We want to give that up, that have that pressure there in those situations. So just looking to play balls in behind, over the top, whatever it may be. Maybe it's playing their feet every now and then hopefully our 7s and 11s can join as quickly as we can. But once again, you're conceding a lot of space in this setup. That's why we don't necessarily. There are teams that run this formation on a consistent basis, but we don't ask our teams to do that until it's really necessary, and trying to chase stuff and to create opportunities for ourselves to hopefully win a game or tie a game or whatever it may be in those situations.
Just create something positive potentially as well. Not even, I guess, could even be a game where you haven't created a lot, right? And it's like, well, like you said, you lose 1-0, you lose 2, 3, 4. It's still a loss. So even if there's a game where it just doesn't look right, or maybe just attacking and offensively just hasn't gone your way, this is something that maybe you could switch into, right? And just be like, just go have at it for 10 minutes and see if we can get a spark and get a goal to come in off someone's backside and off the post and in, by causing that chaos, it can be that situational as well. So cool. Okay, so that was three different setups for 9v9. We looked at kind of a neutral setup. It was like at kickoff or whatever. What it might look like in the attacking half of the field, what am I looking in the defending half of the field. So 3 looks and those almost transitional moments within the formation. So we went 1-3-4-1, 1-4-3-1, and 1-2-4-2. So just different options, different looks. And I guess the key thing that I believe in all of these, there's still 9 people out there on the field, right?
Yeah.
The key thing that I believe in these formats, and when we have the ability to go through different formations, is just have a message and then make sure that message gets conveyed to the coaches.
And just make sure that that description for that player in that position, they know exactly what they're being asked to do in those situations, right? Don't give them multiple things to think about, right? You're a 7, be a 7, go be a 7, and go enjoy that piece. If you want them to be a 2, make sure that they know that, or within reason in those transition moments.
Yep.
But really just giving that, that description of, this is what we want you to do, go do it, go enjoy it, go be creative, go have fun.